This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
And we are breaking in now with news of a police shooting, another police shooting, this time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In photo shortly after 9 a.m. Baton Rouge time this morning, about a mile from the police station. Early reports are that at least 2 police may have been killed, 4 shot. I want to go straight to the mayor of Baton Rouge, Kip Holden, who's joining us now by phone. Mr. Mayor, what can you tell us about what's happened near that police station this morning?
Well, it was a situation whereby our officers responded to shots being fired. And when those officers responded, apparently the gunman started shooting at the officers themselves. We have a report now that there are 2 dead. There are others who are injured to some degree, serious, and to maybe some minor injuries. They have been taken to a local hospital, but everybody's still active and fluid scene right now. So we're trying to put all of the pieces together, put all of the investigative work together, and try to make sense out of what happened in Baton Rouge this morning.
So, Mr. Mayor, 2 police officers dead, according to your information. Do you know how many have been injured, and what can you tell us about how many suspects there are and whether or not they've been contained?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how many have been injured. There are several. That's the information that I'm getting, but they haven't made a body count on the injured. I can tell you this is that when you have police officers responding from 2 agencies, that becomes the major issue that they're focusing on right now. So those departments will pretty much send as many officers as they can. Everything else is not as high a priority. And so therefore there are a lot of officers from both agencies, including the state police, who are on the scene now and also at the hospital to make sure they can get their information correct and then make a determination as to how we need to proceed. So
this is still an active situation? The suspects are still on the loose?
No, sir, I'm not saying they're on the loose. Active means that the crime scene is a very active area because they're trying to gather all of their evidence in order to proceed as to what will happen in this, or get to know who were the players in this, what was the motive for what they did, how many officers are there. They're going to have to get statements from those officers who are surviving and say, tell me what happened when you got there, tell me what you saw. It's going to be a thorough examination of all of the facts from all sides.
So you don't have any good information right now on the suspects and whether or not they've been neutralized or whether or not they're still on the loose, but you can say that at least 2 police officers have been killed. Very tough situation, Mr. Mayor. We are thinking of you right now. We'll let you go back to that work right now. I want to bring in Pierre Thomas, our senior justice correspondent, who's also on the phone. Pierre, this comes at a time when we know that police have been on guard ever since those shootings, one in Baton Rouge, of Alton Sterling back on July 5th, also a follow-on situation in Minneapolis.
Yes, George, and this is a year where officer-related shooting deaths are up 44%. And because of what happened in Baton Rouge just a few weeks ago, one of the things they will have to look at is, were these officers targeted specifically? It sounds like they were responding to some kind of incident, but it's clear that the suspects started shooting at them, and it sounds like they were probably, uniformed officers. So it's a very dangerous situation. We're trying to gather more information, but right now it's a dangerous time for law enforcement.
And John Cohn, former police officer, former member of the National Counterterrorism Center as well. John, we know this comes at a time when there have been some militant groups calling for purges or rages against the police in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, that's right, George. Just last week, the FBI warned law enforcement across the country for calls posted on social media by militant groups to purge or rage against police, particularly police in the area of Baton Rouge and in New Orleans. Baton Rouge officials just uncovered a plot last week that we had hoped was thwarted. But, it's a dangerous time for police, in part because of these threats, in part because people are more willing to resist police when they have encounters, in part because there is a growing false narrative around this country that is being glommed onto by people that all police are racist, all police abuse other people of color, and that just simply isn't true.
Thank you, John. And we're, of course, reporting here from Cleveland, where police are prepared for possible violence at this convention as well. Again, to sum up, there is some kind of an active situation. Police have been shot in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At least 2 police have been killed, according to the mayor. Several injured. We're going to stay on top of this. We'll have full reports all day on abcnews.com and wrap up tonight on World News. For now, I'm George Stephanopoulos in Cleveland. Back to our regular programming.
This has been a special report from ABC.
The question now, who was this lone gunman and what do we know about his motive? We have just learned his identity tonight, and here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross.
Federal authorities tonight identify the shooter as 29-year-old Gavin Eugene Long, a former Marine from Kansas City.
Officers engaged the subject and he ultimately died at the scene.
Police say it appeared to be a well-planned ambush.
He had a mask on. One subject, all black, carrying an AR. Right there, stop to your left, right there.
In the wake of the police shooting of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, and then the deadly attack on police in Dallas by a man who wanted to kill everything blue that moves, law enforcement in Baton Rouge had been put on alert last week by the FBI and Homeland Security for a possible attack.
These threats are very viable and they're very real.
This FBI bulletin from its New Orleans office, obtained by ABC News, showed images from social media and warned multiple groups are calling for or planning riots and or violence against law enforcement in Baton Rouge, Louisiana and Shreveport, Louisiana.
I've been involved in law enforcement for over 30 years. I have never seen an environment this dangerous and this polarized as it relates to police in this country.
And Brian Ross is with us here tonight in Cleveland. And Brian, in looking at both of these cases in Dallas and now in Baton Rouge, it would appear that both of these gunmen had military backgrounds.
That's right. This is a former Marine discharged in 2010. Today was his 29th birthday, David.
All right, our chief course, the shootings in Baton Rouge intensifying the security concerns right here in Cleveland. Tonight, this convention center is now surrounded by fences. Nearby roads are closed. Thousands of officers from all over the country are here, prepared for any threats. ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas on what's being done tonight with just hours to go before the Republican convention.
Against the backdrop of today's horror in Baton Rouge, Cleveland is deploying an army and building a fortress to protect the Republican convention. It's not lost on law enforcement officers that they have a target on their backs. Just 10 days ago, that ambush in Dallas. Protesters running as snipers take aim at officers. Police plunging into the chaos to save lives. 5 officers losing their own.
Police officers who did not return home from work.
And it was just 3 days ago that President Obama sat down for a national town hall meeting on policing and race.
We have to have police that are respected, and we have to recognize the fear that their families go through every time they walk out that door.
Tonight, law enforcement sources tell ABC News they're facing perhaps the most volatile and complicated security picture in recent memory.
Those dump trucks are there to stop cars, trucks, or anything else from getting access to crowds. There are thousands of police officers in this city, including many on bikes. The goal is to be flexible to get to anywhere quickly. And there are cameras throughout the city to give complete situational awareness.
And all of this taking place in Ohio, an open carry state where citizens are allowed to carry guns in public spaces without a permit, even outside the convention center.
On my back is Bushmaster Predator.
But even this Second Amendment advocate warned today that people who support open carry should not bring their guns when the convention starts.
I don't encourage anyone to come down here when tomorrow or during the time of the events carrying if you have no need to.
And Pierre Thomas is with us live tonight. And Pierre, we know there was some confusion in Dallas in the aftermath of those police shootings because of the open carry law there. A push by some now to try to change it, at least temporarily here in Ohio, where the same law is in effect.
It's not going to happen. The governor says he cannot suspend the Constitution on short notice.
All right, Pierre Thomas, who will be with us here all week long. Pierre, thank you. And we should note, for the 17th time in office, President Obama addressing a domestic mass shooting, calling anyone who targets law enforcement a coward.
And we as a nation have to be loud and clear that nothing justifies violence against law enforcement.
I want to bring in ABC's chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, who is here in the convention hall with me. And first, John, hard to believe we were just with the president for that national town hall on race, policing, and how to protect our police officers. And tonight, he's just addressed the nation yet again.
As you point out, over and over again, he has had to address the nation following mass shootings. But, David, there is something different this time, both in terms of what is happening and in the president's words. The fear is that we're looking at potentially a new trend, the intentional targeting, hunting of police officers. That's why you heard some real anger in the president's voice today, talking about cowards who speak for no one.
Which leads me to my next question, John, because a lot of eyes on Donald Trump and the tone here tomorrow night. Really, on both presidential candidates, listening to their every word, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, with this nation on edge.
There's no question these issues will be front and center as the candidates take the stage here, the Republicans here in Cleveland, next week Democrats in Philadelphia. But David, these are the two most divisive candidates we have seen in memory at exactly the time that voters are saying they want to be unified. In our poll out just today, 83% say they expect the next president to put a major focus on improving race relations. They want unity, not division.
A real test for both of them, John. Thank you.